One of the most dangerous moments in your life is when you've become successful at something that you've outgrown. Because from the outside looking in, no one can see the problem. There's income, there's a title, there's a reputation, everything looks fantastic, but inside, something is off. And if you've been feeling that lately, I want to share with you today a story of my own that completely changed the direction of my life. I've actually lived this 3 times, from being a tennis pro in Beverly Hills to being a real estate investor to owning Keller Williams realty franchises. And I thought each one of those times, it was exactly what I wanted. I had success. I mean, let's really talk about it. A collared shirt, shorts, tennis racket, Southern California, Beverly Hills, money everywhere. Who wouldn't say that they had it made in the shade? Everything looked good. Everything was actually right. I actually loved doing what I was doing, but something felt off. Now let's talk about being inside of Keller Williams. I owned 3 Keller Williams realty franchises. They were all successful. They were all moving in the right direction as related to growth. The money was there. The influence was there. I had an amazing team around me. We actually were called the Coastal Vision Team. I decided way back in the day that if you were going to be on my team, it was not going to be called a staff. It was going to be called a vision team, because our job was to bring the vision, the actual vision statement of the company to life. So we were called the vision team. At the same time, I had a SaaS model called Recruiting Bridge that was growing, and people knew who I was. I mean, notoriety was something that's sure that I strived for in that moment in time. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you would have looked at where I was from the outside looking in, you would have said, Adam is having success. He's made it. Though there was a problem. And here was the problem. And I experienced this problem before, and I didn't see it as a pattern. I started feeling restless. And quite frankly, I hated to admit it, because everything was going so well and nothing was wrong. Everything around me was great. My team was great. The agents were great. My users of Recruiting Bridge was great. The company was great. The opportunities were endless. Or at least it felt that way. I mean, let me give you some perspective. I had become one of the best operators inside of that organization, where they flew me to Ireland, me and 3 other people to Ireland, first class, with a first class trip that was truly second to none. It was an amazing event, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else, that I was being called to build. And I'll be honest, at first I thought the feeling would go away. I thought maybe I was just tired of building this enterprise that I was building. Maybe I just needed a vacation. And then there was the feeling of guilt. Maybe I was being ungrateful for what had been given to me, or what I had been blessed to have. So what did I do? I ignored the feeling. And I ignored the feeling for years. And now looking back on it, I can honestly say that I believe that that's what most people do, is they ignore it. And you ignore it because you're having success. But here's the thing, you're having success inside of someone else's system. And just like any successful system is successful because it rewards you for staying. The more successful you become, the harder it is to leave. I mean, let's be honest. You have the income, you have the notoriety, you have the certainty, you have expectations. It almost becomes like the same soup just reheated over and over and over. And eventually you start to confuse comfort with alignment. And being fully transparent here, I had to pause, and I had to really take a hard step back and look, because that was my mistake. I was confusing comfort with alignment. And that was my biggest aha, epiphany, whatever you want to say, is that success and alignment are not the same thing. You can be successful, you can be extremely successful, and still be called to do something else, and be called to go somewhere else. You see, I was having that success and I was winning. And yet I still felt like there was another game that I was supposed to be playing. And here's what happened. The longer I ignored it, the louder it got. And that's when I finally realized that I wasn't being pulled away from something. I was actually being pulled towards something, not away from something, towards something. And that's what changed everything. And so today I teach that as a 4-stage framework. Stage 1 is called conditioning, and that is where you build the life everybody told you to build. Stage 2 is called uncertainty. Something feels off, but you just can't explain it. Stage 3 is clarity, and that's where you start to see what you're actually called to build. And lastly is You can call it ownership, or you can say, this is your stance. You stop waiting for permission and you actually just start to build it. And that's where most people get stuck, is they get stuck between uncertainty and clarity. So steps 2 and 3. Okay, so let's go back to stage 1. Stage 1 is the conditioning. The conditioning is where your life that you are building is the life that everybody told you to build. How do you know it's the life that you want? Because you're defining it with success. But if that container has you've outgrown that container, that's the space where we need to wake up and see. Because here's the thing. You went and got your 4-year degree, and you probably went to a career fair, and you probably got a job. That's what you're supposed to do. And that job now has become kind of like a golden handcuffs, if you will. I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you're feeling that it is not the calling that you're supposed to be in, you need to listen to that. But that is stage 1, is we've got to pay attention to the conditioning that we have had. My conditioning, I played tennis. I played collegiate tennis. I attempted to play professional tennis. So what was the next step after I realized I was an American, not a European, was getting my butt kicked? Was I went and taught tennis. Why? Because I thought that that was the right next step for me to do. Now, was it a great next step? Sure it was. Was it my calling? Maybe at that point in time, though at the end of the day, it was what I thought I had to do, because that was the conditioning that I had, that I was coming from that space, and therefore I had to work in that space. And for myself, as I look at the second stage, which is uncertainty, I wasn't sure what was going on after about 8 or 9 years in that teaching space in Beverly Hills, that I thought, why am I feeling this? Why does it feel off? Why would someone want to leave this role when it is an amazing role? And quite frankly, I couldn't explain it. And that's why I call this stage 2 is uncertainty. Because when you're feeling that uncertainty and you can't explain it, it's okay to put the label of uncertainty on it. Though what we need to pay attention to in the uncertainty stage is, don't push it away. Don't push it away that something feels off. Go ahead and actually step into what feels off. So again, I'll keep using myself in the space of Keller Williams. Just felt off from the standpoint that I felt like I was building someone else's business. Now, this was just me. It was just the way that I felt. I felt that I was building a franchise, and sure, it was my business, but I still had a lot of limitations on what I could and couldn't do. There was still a lot of guidelines, a lot of red tape, and a lot of politics. And the uncertainty that something felt off, I couldn't identify it, but I pushed it away because success was happening. And I was measuring success at that point in time with money, with notoriety, with being known. And while that's not bad, it's finite, right? Success will end, notoriety will end, but yet I ignored the feeling that something was off. So stage 2 is uncertainty and stepping into that. So if I could do it all over again, I would have said, whoa, something feels off. Let's step into it versus ignoring it. And stage 3 is the clarity stage. So once you have identified that the container you're in is no longer serving you, then you step into the space of uncertainty. Okay, something feels off and I need to identify it, is now when we step into stage 3 called clarity. And clarity is twofold. Clarity, you start to identify what is uncertain. So if I look at my tennis days, the uncertainty came from, what am I going to do next? I actually had a fear as a teaching tennis pro in Beverly Hills. And again, no offense to anyone who is doing this right now, but we had pros that were there in their 60s and 70s. And I thought to myself, I do not want to be teaching tennis at the age of 50, 60, actually 40, 50, 60, or 70 years old. And so what I actually did is I created clarity there and said I started looking for a new vehicle. When I was inside of the Keller Williams world, the uncertainty was, I feel like there's a lot of red tape here. I feel like there's a lot of limitations here. I feel like the earning potential, sure, could be great, but I'm going to have to continue to build something that just feels misaligned here. So I had to identify and create clarity there. Though here's where I want to really help this land. Creating clarity in the uncertainty space is good, but you have to create clarity on what's next, right? What is next? So what did I do? I started writing a white paper on the I Love Coaching community. I started writing a white paper on what was it that I felt called to build and develop? What was it that really had me awake at 3 a.m. saying that would be amazing if I could do that? And so I did. I wrote this white paper on the I Love Coaching community. And it was, at the time, I called it a tribe of coaches, right? And a tribe of coaches that was known around the world. And here's the crazy part. That was written like in 2019. Here we are, 2026, and we've been able to serve coaches on 4 continents now. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I stayed in an uncertainty space, pushed it away, and didn't go out to create clarity. So again, stage 3 here is creating clarity. And now let's go to the last stage, stage 4, ownership, or taking a stance. John Maxwell calls this jumping the fence. And what I love about this is where you actually stop waiting for permission and you actually start building something. So with my clarity of writing out my white paper, this was the neat part. I had a dream. And in that dream was one of my former mentors in the coaching space. And so I woke up, and in that dream, I almost felt like I was supposed to reach out to that mentor. So I did. I reached out to the mentor and I said, hey, I don't know where you are in the world, but if you give me 3 hours of your time, I'll fly to wherever you are. And I want to share with you a white paper that I've written in the coaching space. So sure enough, that mentor replied. Sure enough, that mentor said, yep, meet me here at this point in time. They did, picked me up. We sat in that person's kitchen. It was supposed to be for 3 hours. We sat there for 7 hours, 7 hours going through this entire white paper. And they were so happy for me and they were so thrilled. And they reassured me that this was truly a lane that I was supposed to take action on. This was a lane that I was supposed to start to build. And so I did. I actually started to build it. So in that last step of what we call ownership, or taking a stance for what you're feeling called to build, you've got to stop waiting for permission. Had I wrote that white paper and then just stopped, I probably would have still been in that former container that I felt uncertainty in. And I took a step, stage 4, taking a stance, owning what you are being called to build. I took a step and I went out and I found a who to give me almost permission and validation to go take what I had developed and go build it and go start to build it. Now, some people may say, wow, I can't do that, right? I have my income. I've got my commitments here. I've got this, I've got that. Sure. So let me ask you something. Do you feel like you've outgrown it? Not that you're tired of it or not that you're frustrated with it, that you have genuinely outgrown the container that you're currently in? Because those are completely different questions. Maybe it's the role. Maybe it's the company. Maybe it's your business. Maybe it's the version of yourself that you're feeling this. But if that feeling keeps showing up, I want you to pay attention to it, because it's probably not a burnout, right? So many people say, oh, you're just getting burned out. You're just getting burned out. Nope, that's not true. I guarantee you, it's probably your calling. So to land this plane, let's just keep this simple. I want you to pause what you're doing right now, and I want you to go through my 4-step framework. Number 1, identify your conditioning. Number 2 is step into that uncertainty. Number 3, step into ownership, step into taking a stance in that space that you're feeling called to build. And remember, it's okay to have success, but feel stuck. So the goal isn't to build something that's safe. The goal is to build something that's yours. So I'm giving you permission right now to go own what you're called to build. And if that's in the coaching space, head over to ilovecoachingco.com and download our Get Paid to Coach guide. And if you want more content like this, give me a follow, give me a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.